Hey everybody, Dave Whitmarsh here. Hope you guys are enjoying some of the sessions today. This is the final session of the day, and I brought this session into place because, well, truthfully, I felt with what's happened in the world over the last 13 months, there's been a few instances where people might consider themselves to be underemployed or have incurred some debt along the way, and I thought I would bring John in to talk about recruiter share. Now, I've known John for a couple decades now, and John has a really solid product that I think we can or might be a good fit for some individuals to really leverage their talents, their networks as a recruiter. And this isn't going to be much of a presentation as such as more of a walk through the product, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. And if there's opportunities for you, then you can by all means reach out to John and we'll set you guys up. So without further ado, we'll kick you over to John.
Thanks, David. Yeah, this has been an interesting journey. So just in the vein of full disclosure, I am a recovering software developer and a recovering recruiter. So I've been in your seat, and what I'm about to show you is really a culmination of quite a bit of learning and quite a few mistakes made. Feel free to ask questions. There's a chat box there, and I'm happy to answer questions along the way to the extent I can. And if necessary, I can wait till the end if there's quite a few.
Yeah, so, actually, I'll jump in and say we don't have a super big audience. So if folks want, I can actually just take you right off presentation or mute mode, and you can ask the questions directly. So if you feel that you can just type a message in the chat and I'll promote you, I believe the proper term is. Okay.
That's fantastic. So we're all little kids, right? And you're sitting there and you think, well, you know, this kid wants to be an engineer and this kid wants to be a doctor and that kid wants to be a recruiter. Said no kid ever. So how do people get into this? And I started asking the question about, you know, as people grow into various roles in a company and ultimately end up being recruiters, it's not an easy path, but there are really three primary types of recruiting talent. Some recruiters have all three of these, but most have one of these be sort of the top of the pyramid of their talents. The first one is people who are just particularly good at finding candidates and building manager relationships. And that's what makes hires happen, right? The second is those who are really great at finding companies with jobs to support, basically a sales business development function. But when it comes to actually supporting a job, it's like, they don't really love to do that. They can, but not really excited about. And the third is a human resources process guru. This is the person who can drive process really aggressively, understands all the paperwork and the sequencing, the crossing T's, dotting I's. This is really the three buckets that we found in. And what I'm going to share with you today is kind of what I've learned on and what we've evolved to make it possible for people with all three of these talents to be able to, like David said, with the pandemic and how recruiting got completely hammered, how you can have a hedge against every economic variation going forward if you have one of these three talents as a recruiter. Now, that doesn't mean you have to quit anything you're doing. It doesn't mean that you have to leave and join a different company. Or this is when I step back and I realize as a manager, as a CEO, when I have a job to fill, I want to get the best recruiter possible, period. And if that recruiter is working somewhere else, in the end, I don't really care as long as A, it's not in conflict, and B, my job and my team are top priority. It's important to me that I get high level of TLC. The underlying sort of belief system here is that better hires come from proven recruiters with the best tools, right? It sounds easy, right? Sounds like it's simple equation, but how do you know if you're a proven recruiter? How do you know if you have the best tools? And connecting those together with the manager who's committed to filling the job is a non-trivial exercise. So it occurred to me, what if we could offer something for recruiters in the US, in Canada, and in Europe currently, that gives them complete flexibility. You can earn some extra cash on the side. You can do it as a primary, and where the success with each job is consistently higher. I'm going to focus on that for just a second. With contingency search, by way of example, roughly 18 to 20% of the jobs that they get are ever filled. And if you're a contingency recruiter, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because the managers aren't committed, the companies aren't committed. You know, it's a speed to throwing stuff against the wall game. And it's a hard job, the recruiters don't want to work on it, the managers don't get the support. And at the end of the day, if you fill more than 18, 20% of the jobs you get as a contingency recruiter, you're really lucky. On the other side of that is when a manager is committed and you're the primary designated recruiter to drive the hire, it's much more fun. And so I wanted to focus on what would a model look like to create that fun. And that's where we really connected the cloud, or the sort of on-demand economy, and the gig workers, and the ability to get what you need right now rather than have to sign big contracts with the recruiting industry. So this is really cloud recruiting, and it could involve any recruiter in any of those countries and many others on an as-needed basis. So I'm going to shift a little bit now and say, okay, now we have a manager with a job to fill. So let's spin this around to the other side of the equation. What recruiters should I use? That's an easy question with a really hard answer. Because I know David, but David's busy. David's hourly, somebody else is project-based, somebody else is contingency, somebody else is retained, some is some variation. These recruiters work with an agency, but I don't have an agreement with that agency. Where do I start? Because at the end of the day, as a hiring manager, as a hiring executive, I don't care about the agency. I care about the recruiter and the tools that recruiter has to make my hire happen with somebody who's going to stay and produce at a high level. So you can see where it's just chaos and pandemonium right now. And no matter how good you are, unfortunately, you're stuck in the middle of this. So the options right now for the recruiter, for the managers are, I asked David, who do you know? I go to Upwork or Bounty Jobs or one of the others and throw jobs out there, and I try to find a recruiter. Just the process of selecting the recruiter can take days or weeks. So what would happen if we organize this whole thing across recruiting talents based on a rubric of industry, department, job level, and geography? That's what we did with Recruiter Share. So it's really the sort of gig economy, the on-demand economy meets recruiting. So what's nice is that you have all these recruiters available, but now they're organized, and you're organized in a way that it's completely non-exclusive. You can do other things, no problem. The only thing we ask is, A, that it not be in conflict with anything else you're doing, and that's on you. And that when you do get a Recruiter Share job, you jam on it as your number one priority. It also is going to open up other opportunities for other jobs going forward. Do what you love. You know, again, the recruiters who really love to work with managers and fill jobs love Recruiter Share. I mean, love, 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 love it, because the manager's committed, the tools are awesome, and the payment structure happens all by itself without any muss, no fuss. So you can choose the jobs. This is one of the things that recruiters really like, because you'll get a text, and I'll show you that in a second. And you can look at the more detail, and you can choose to take the job or not. There's also state-of-the-art tools. We have a hiring automation platform underneath this. To share real briefly, a recruiter named Angie was supporting a job for a foreign company in Houston, Texas. It was a really hard job to fill. It had been open without us 2 months before we got there with 0 candidates. So Angie took the job, profiled the job. She then launched it in the platform. It's called Hire Mojo. Within 4 days, the person who they hired was found, screened, and presented. And I asked her what she thought, and she said she was shocked because she thought it was going to be 3 to 5 weeks of hardcore heads down sourcing, and it ended up being 0 heads down sourcing and more of that TLC with the manager and walking through the process. Also recognize that when I'm recruiting, when I recruited, when the recruiters are busy and something either in the technology or sourcing, if you're independent, where do you turn? There's no one you can go to. There's no one that cares, really. You can buy tools, but you don't have a designated support function, and this does. We call it the customer happiness team. You can earn a lot of money doing this, and it's predictable. I know this sounds kind of a routine, but if you've had your own agency or your own recruiting business, you'll understand that, okay, you fill the job for David, you send him the invoice, and then he doesn't get back to you for 60, 90, 120 days. He sends it, hey, I sent it to the AP department, but nothing's been paid. With Recruiter Share, you get paid for all work in May in June, by June 15th. All work in June by July 15th. It is like clockwork, and it goes right into your bank account through Bill.com. And the committed hiring managers. Another one of those key success elements is, and if any of you have been recruiting long, you know the difference between a manager who's connected and wants to fill it versus the manager who's looking for the purple squirrel. And you know what? I know they're out there. I'm going to wait a year to fill this job until I find my purple squirrel. Well, one, no one wants to work for a year on a job. And two, one of the ways that we get committed hiring managers and committed companies is they actually pay a little bit at the launch of every job. And you get paid a little bit at the launch, at the beginning of every job. You're the only recruiter working on the job as the point, but you have other recruiters to back you up if you need additional sourcing or other support, in addition to all the other tools and LinkedIn Recruiter and such. All the billing, all the payments, we actually go so far as to create an invoice from you to us. We create it, you approve it, and that means you don't even have to worry about creating an invoice. You don't have to worry about doing the research. What did I do this month? When did so-and-so start? All of that is tracked and presented to you for approval and comes right back us and then goes right into your bank account. It's pretty cool. And the recruiters who are doing it really, really love doing this. This is working sufficiently well that we actually got pulled into Recruiter by one of our customers. So now we have recruiters in Europe, and we're now being asked to support other jobs in Australia and potentially Singapore. Obviously, we're being very careful and metered about how we do this, but we're growing fairly fast. So having great recruiters in the United States and other places is key. The other thing we're finding is that a lot of the international firms, like the one that needed the job filled in Houston, is called Trelleborg. They're a Swedish company, and they're all over the world. And they really appreciated being able to get access to you as a proven recruiter in the United States at a fixed rate in a short period of time without haggling and contracts and complexity. So we're seeing more and more companies outside the United States wanting to use it. So let me shift here. And if you have any questions, let me just pause there first. Any questions so far? Does this make sense? And hopefully it does. So I'm going to show you real briefly what it looks like for the user, the manager, or the company. So it has unlimited users in the company, and they literally go to the Recruiter Share site and click the Fill My Jobs Now. And you see where it says Fill New Job, aptly named. They click that and they literally fill in 4 fields: job, title, location. We bucket all the jobs into 4 tiers. Now, in this case, it's United States, so it's dollars. And if you think about the distribution of salaries in a country, the top of the bell curve is the difference between tiers 2 and 3. But companies like it because it's fixed rate. So they pick tier 3, and this is where the real magic comes in. They can hand pick you either by selecting new recruiters and looking at your profiles, or if they've worked with you before, by simply selecting you. If they don't know you, or it's an area they don't want to spend time digging through recruiters, they just choose next best available. In this case, they select. I can see Jane's reviews, her stats, add her, and then I press invite. So imagine in 60 seconds or less, the manager has just initiated outreach to you and the other proven recruiters in that geography, in that supporting jobs in that domain, at that level. And so what's going to happen is you're going to get a text, and it says, hey, there's an opportunity for you. It's going to tell you how much you're going to earn both at job launch and upon hire, along with any other job details like the description. We're seeing that recruiters are accepting those invites in 17 minutes or less on average. The fastest has been right around 42 seconds, and the slowest has been 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So you can imagine, as a manager, just getting a hold of my own internal recruiter could take a couple hours. They're busy, I'm busy. So in this case, we had one of the recruiters who signed up say, I keep missing these invites. I said, well, you need to, keep it handy. She said, what if I'm in the bathroom? I said, we should probably take your phone into the bathroom with you. And she started laughing. But the reality is that we have not a huge number we don't want to have so many recruiters that there's not enough work to go around. But we need enough recruiters to make sure that the managers get a responsiveness that is jaw-dropping. And then once the jobs start, you'll see the manager has a portal. They can see the real-time flow, and they can see the people you've ranked in the platform along with your notes. And that's where you get in front of the manager and say, okay, we have a standing weekly meeting. Let's schedule Robin and Reggie. Great, I'm on it. And you help guide this to success. You help negotiate and close and support as that manager needs. So for you as a recruiter, whether you're working somewhere else, or you're not, you'll get incoming job requests. You'll get a hiring automation platform, by the way, with active direct sourcing, with promoting on a lot of expensive places, including LinkedIn Jobs and Indeed sponsored, a whole bunch of other places. And you actually, another thing worthy of note is that when jobs come in, we ask the companies if it's okay to use their brand in the job marketing. Now, for most outside recruiting support, they never want to do that. You'll never see a contingency or retained search firm tell who the customer is, who the client is. And the reason is they don't want the candidates going around them. We're taking a very different open communication approach to this. So we'll actually promote that company's brand for you. And in fact, most companies are directing all candidates to the recruiter, including ones coming from their own website. There's other recruiters to help you find candidates. If you want to bring in jobs to support, you can do that and get compensated for that too. There's a community, including our customer happiness team, which is fantastic. I can't say enough good things about our support team. They understand that support is really the most important thing in any business, even if it's a high-tech business. And we take that to heart. And then all the income tracking, payment, all of that is done for you. You don't need to have a complex set of books or accounting. It's literally all done for you. So why don't I show you under the hood a little bit? So one of the things I used to ask my recruiters was, okay, there's a support manager job. Show me the most successfully filled support manager jobs up to this point in time, how they were described, what love letter or job description was used, what interview questions helped discern those with talent, not just years of experience, but talent versus those that didn't, and the stats of where the applicants and hires came from. And I could not, for love or money, get that information from recruiters, from the applicant tracking systems, from LinkedIn, from anybody. No one has that data. And so we started grabbing it and collecting it on our platform. And we've now filled north of 48,000, almost 50,000 jobs on this platform. So here, imagine as a recruiter, you have a support manager, a customer service manager, and with a click of a button, it shows you a list of jobs, and I picked one of them. Here is a job where the person who was hired was found, screened, and presented to the manager in 1 day out of 38 applicants. Just to know that's something, but to be able to tap in and see what love letter yielded that result is really helpful. Now, you don't have to use it. You can use whatever job description you want, but you know this one quantitatively worked. You get the initial interview questions, which are usually 8 to 12 multiple choice questions with weighted scoring, and we have patents on how all that works. Secondary interview questions, these would be questions that you would typically ask candidates in the initial conversation, 2 or 3 questions, and then statistics. Well, all that's available for you right out of the gate. And the statistics, here's an example of all the applicants for this job and all the applicants and hires for this job category. Here, for example, if you don't put the job on Career Builder, you're probably going to be doing yourself a disservice, but you don't have an account, you don't want to pay for it. That's all included in what we do. That's part of the platform magic. At the end of the day, what matters most is to take great care of the hiring managers and companies. So here's a quote from Brian Vogel, who's worked with RecruiterShare really since nearly when it started last year. And the way it sums it up, I think really is well written. It's a mind-boggling low cost, maybe the initial hook, but it's the service from the stable of recruiters like you and quality candidates that drive the loyalty and high satisfaction. So we're seeing nearly every company who tries one job on RecruiterShare use it repeatedly and in multiple locations, and in some cases, multiple countries. That's what brought us into Europe. A company called Topcon said, I need you. And what I didn't realize, and many of you might, is that recruiter or hiring managers in France won't even consider a recruiter from Norway, because you can't possibly understand the French culture if you're not in France and speak French natively. So anyway, there's a lot of that in Europe, and this gets around that. Next thing is, well, what's the right payment? How much do I get paid to do this work? And this again is we're trying to be really compelling and supportive of you, the recruiters, because at the end of the day, it's fully recognized that great recruiters should be paid well. So here, there's one opportunity where you go out and find individual jobs to bring into RecruiterShare. And when you do that, we'll give you 20% of the revenue when that job gets filled and the person starts, period. We also have an affiliate program. This is where we have very few of these. This is a really rarefied group of organizations and people where they introduce us to companies, and that's all they have to do. And then every hire that company makes through RecruiterShare over the next year, they get paid something for it. So it's a way to make an introduction and frankly make a fairly large amount of money without having to do any other work. This is where most recruiters make their money, is supporting jobs. So here's the payout schedule for each of those 4 tiers. And you can see launching just 4 jobs a month and filling 4 or 5 a month. So that as a recruiter goes, that's not a super heavy load. You can make over $150,000, which recruiters are actually making. So, and we have others where they just take a job a month. So they're making, $2,000-$3,000 a month just sort of for spare change, or they have kids' college education they're trying to subsidize, or there's something else, or they're work-at-home parent. But it's very real. And again, because we take care of all the billing, invoicing, accounting, there's no collections you have to worry about from the clients. There's no invoice you even have to create. We're going to create one for you that you approve back to us. Everything's streamlined. And that's part of what took us so long to build, is make this super easy for the recruiters to focus on their talents and not on all this other stuff around having a business that can be so time consuming. So if you're interested in either of these, go to recruitershare.net and click on Join as a Recruiter. Now, we'd love to hear from you. Recruiters on RecruiterShare are and I'm very biased, are some of the best recruiters in the country that they exist, where they reside. When you support a job, it's expected that you'll do it with a high degree of professional care and urgency. And because of that, the repeat usage is high. We've had some recruiters, we have a love your recruiter guarantee. So we've had some recruiters who are asked not to support jobs any further, and that's okay. But know that if that happens more than a couple times, it may be that recruiter share is not the best place for you. There is a very high, this is like the elite recruiting team. And a lot of people fit that, but some don't, and that's okay too. And with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Thanks, John. So some of the things that intrigue me most about this, and I, forgive me, I always think from the CEO or HR side first, but so I see this as being a real advantage, because you have a good, strong database of recruiters to help you out. And so if you're a point person and somebody's looking for, an IO psychologist or something crazy, that might not be your game at all, right? But collectively through the network, you're tapping into, hundreds, thousands of recruiters that might have that contact, right? Or
That's
that
right.
knowledge. And so really from a face forward standpoint, it just gives the opportunity, correct me if I'm wrong, it gives the opportunity to present, in good candidates in areas that you'd have no expertise in.
That's exactly right. And I would liken it to, a small cab company versus all the Uber and Lyft drivers. It's sort of that comparison. Because if you are a terrific recruiter, you may not want to belong to a little tiny company where that's all you get to work on. This gives you a much broader view. And as the CEO, I don't want to hire one recruiter who has finance and accounting domain and hope they can pick up the technology jobs. I want to get to the best technology recruiter. And this allows you, to your point exactly, is to have access to a depth of recruiting talent by job, supported by a platform that is made to support every kind of job in the geographies we support, married together. And it truly is uncommon to be able to get access to that level of recruiter talent, and ultimately for, a fraction of the cost of any other external, in some cases even internal cost.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and David, by the way, I think you bring up something that I haven't shared with you before, which is this largely exists because I was a really frustrated hiring executive and CEO. I just started asking myself, what do I really want here? And ultimately, what I always wanted was recruiter share.
Well, and for those that don't know, John actually had an RPO business, that sold off and did very well for 20 years in the space or more, an early adopter to applicant tracking systems when they were first coming in. So I can certainly understand, how this does pull a lot of those things together. And like anything though, there's so many things in here that are valuable from a standalone. And I will be the first to admit that I'm no recruiting expert, right? There's just having the ability to publish jobs and get them out over the networks. If you're don't have your monster licenses or all those things, like that's very costly, right?
Right. That's exactly
And
right. Well, and even if you have some of those things, are they the right things? I have my LinkedIn posting, but I don't have my Indeed sponsored. I have my Indeed sponsored, but I don't have the direct sourcing, automated direct sourcing. All those things woven together, and then a support structure. It would be very difficult as a recruiter to repeat this on your own. And that's why this is working so well, because you get a level of care and support and an envelope that is likely to make you far more successful. And frankly, it's more fun.
Yeah, and I will, I worked with John, and I guess was it last week or the week before, and his accounts payable reached out and said, here's an invoice from Bill, and or from Bill.com, and I was like, wait a second, I owe you money? How do I owe you money? And like John said in the presentation, it really is. They've taken care of everything. You know, here's what we're paying you. Do you agree with this invoice? You know, it was so simple, that I was a little surprised at how forward that was, right? On for the good for me, by the way. So I get it, and I think this is a really unique opportunity for a lot of folks. You know, there's a reason why, you know, some of these multi-level marketing things, like, you know, Mary Kay, you know, has been around for what, hundreds of years, it seems, or over 50 anyway. People need additional money, and why not tap into something that is your strength, right? It makes so much sense, right?
Yeah, and like you know, to this day, I admittedly, David, I don't tell a lot of people this. I poke around in the platform to see what recruiters are doing and how they're doing, and the magic that happens when a job gets a little stuck, and oh, there's this new organization and there's new way to reach out to people this way, and we just incorporate it into the platform. So it's
Mhm.
an active learning, active outreach platform, in addition to the recruiters' efforts. And we have LinkedIn recruiter seats that the recruiters can use if they need it at no cost to them. It costs the recruiters nothing to be part of Recruiter Share, nothing, zero. Um, it's really just to make sure that we all find success. And rather than focusing on making a bunch of money with every job, you know, we make a little bit with every job, and that makes it possible to scale this thing to what will hopefully be a worldwide scale in the next year.
Yeah. Well, yeah, based off the fact that what were you saying, that your revenue growth month over month is, or was?
116, 116%.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, coming on 50,000 jobs, you're definitely disrupting the space. So I like it. All right,
So,
any questions? I see, just to give you guys a heads up, John, John published his contact information in the chat, just his email, in case you guys, for obvious reasons, you may not want to, you know, identify or share or ask questions, right? But he published it into the chat, but I believe he only sent it to the panelists. So I just pushed it back out
oh, thank you.
to all the attendees. So if anybody has any questions, then you can certainly get a hold of John, and you know, maybe take some time. This recording will be back up. It'll be on the site within an hour, so you can come back in and take a second look, or if you want. All right.
Well, thank you, David. This has been terrific. And for each of you that's listening and you know, participating, please feel free to reach out, ask any question. You know, I've been in the recruiting and HR space since dirt. So, you know, I'm here as a resource to you, even if it has nothing to do with Recruiter Share. Please consider me part of your network.
And I should say that is now in your chat. I forgot to hit enter. So yeah, so reach out if you have any questions, and or you can reach out to me directly as well. And happy to help or steer you in any direction I can with my knowledge. And John will happily do the same there.
And
All right,
one last
go ahead.
request as we wrap up here. For those of you participating, I'd love your feedback. Hey, this makes sense. This one doesn't make sense. If you just did a little tweak here or there, that would make more sense. We're active learners here. So if you see something that you love or something that you think could be better, please share it.
Well, I'll send you guys out a copy of that and with the copy of this presentation. And so if you think about it and have something, feel free to reply to the email and I will be sure that John gets it. Okay. Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, David. Another great
All right.
job.
Well,
Look forward to talking again soon.
all right, we'll talk. Bye now.
Bye-bye.